All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Arvada City Council meeting for today, May 12th, 2026. Ms. Rush, if you'll do the roll call.
Mayor Simpson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Here.
Councilmember Ambrose.
Here.
Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Here.
Councilmember Griffith.
Here.
Councilmember Levison.
Here. Councilmember Pfeiffer.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Councilmember Davis from this evening.
Councilmember Griffith, I need your vote. All votes are cast. That passes 6-0. Thank you very much. Councilmember Davis is an excused absence. We have two workshops this evening. The first is going to be the Wildfire Mitigation and Response Strategies workshop, and I do see we have our friends from Arvada Fire here with us for this one as well. So who has this item? Come on. All right, welcome.
Get me two council meetings in a row. So, thank you, Mayor and members of council. We appreciate the opportunity to really come and talk about this wildfire mitigation and response strategies. I do have Stephen Parker here from Arvada Fire, and it's very important we present this together because we work on this together constantly. I mean, this is really a very close partnership for the city. As we go through today, there's a number of topics that we're going to cover, and obviously taking questions from council. From an agenda perspective, if you would mind going to the next one. Oh, there, I got it, sorry. I found it. So we're going to talk about overall preparedness across both the city and Arvada Fire, and we're going to talk about a number of different aspects of that. We're going to talk about situational awareness training, all of those pieces. We're going to talk about the Community Wildfire Protection Plan that we recently finished, how that fits into our strategies and how that's going to continue to guide our efforts going forward. We'll talk about the WUI code recently adopted by council and how that fits in as well. I think that's an important piece of the conversation. We're going to talk about the Excel public safety power shutoffs, because those certainly have raised a lot of concern, a lot of interest in the community, and they do fit into our wildfire strategy. So we'll talk about where we are with those. We're going to talk about prescribed fire and where that fits in, and then we'll also briefly mention the current efforts around the Jefferson County Hazard Mitigation Plan, which both Arvada Fire and the city are participating in, and how that fits in also. So a number of topics that we're going to cover. We did receive some questions up front from council. I'll try to make sure that I cover those, but if any I don't hit, just feel free to let me know and we'll try to hit that. So from an overall preparedness perspective, emergency management takes point from a city perspective on this, and obviously we work very closely with Arvada Fire throughout the process. We use a number of tools, both commercially available and public safety only tools, to monitor what's going on from a fire perspective. So any vegetation fire, any structure fire that happens in Arvada's fire protection district, we get notified about it and we follow up on that. Is this a big fire? Is this something that has the potential to spread, et cetera? And someone from an emergency management perspective, in partnership with police, other folks in the city manager's office, is really looking at this 24/7. So if we have some kind of start that we need to activate the emergency operations center, then we're ready to do that. We have made extensive investment in building a team here within the city that can respond from an emergency operations center perspective. So we have 65 people who have been through multiple trainings. Most of them have participated in at least one, if not as many as 3 exercises since last year in terms of preparing for an actual emergency. We've done a wildfire specific exercise as part of that, as well as a number of other emergency exercises to build those capabilities. We use Lookout Alert, the same thing that we use to notify the community, to actually notify our staff when there's an issue, so very rapidly can get that information out. We also do basically a pre-activation on days that are high risk. So, for example, when the National Weather Service issued a particularly dangerous situation warning, we had the EOC on pre-activation. Same with when there's a PSPS and some of the fire danger days as well. So we're really trying to make sure that we're ready to respond anytime there needs to be something along those lines. Obviously, we've put a big emphasis on expanding Lookout Alert adoption in the community, since that is the key notification system. We are still not where we need to be from an overall adoption within the city, but it continues to be an ongoing focus point, both for us as well as Arvada Fire. Every event, every neighborhood meeting, everything that we go to, we talk about Lookout Alert and trying to increase the signups. I'm pleased to report we have had some increases in some neighborhoods who have put additional emphasis on it, and we are seeing some improvements. In addition, the Arvada Chamber is now putting in an effort to try to inform the business community, get some of them and their employees, et cetera, signed up as well. So there are ongoing efforts to really move that forward. I'm going to deviate from the slides a little bit and try to address some of the questions that came up related to this workshop. I want to start by talking about some of the efforts from a neighborhood perspective. We are working really extensively with the neighborhood teams that we have. And when you look at how this education and outreach partnership works, within the city, our communications team, including neighborhood services, emergency management, and Arvada Fire, especially their community team, are all out there on a regular basis trying to do these education, try to do these partnerships. So when you look at it, it's a constant focus. Some neighborhoods in Arvada are much further ahead than others. Some of them have really put a lot of effort into events, into education amongst the neighbors, trying to push Lookout Alert signups, things of that nature. Several of them have taken advantage of our neighborhood grant program in order to fund mitigation projects within their neighborhoods. Obviously, not all of the neighborhoods are participating, but we even had one neighborhood now that the fire department and I are working with that wants to actually hire a consultant to do a fuels sort of analysis of their open space areas that border their neighborhood and try to understand what some of their risks are and what can potentially be done. So in a number of places, we really have a lot of good things going on. We have presented twice now in the past year at the Neighborhood Leader Network meetings and trying to get both our own education out there, but also other neighborhoods who have done things successfully to be able to say, this is what we did, this is how we did it, this is where we got the funding, things of that nature. And so we really are trying to get not just, individual to individual, but having the neighborhoods talk to each other and having them really work with each other on what's been successful. We've done the Arvada Fire Safety Days, and that we've done a number of National Night Out presentations in neighborhoods when those have come up. And so the content that's out there is definitely rich. We've also, from our communications team, put out a number of different communications through the Arvada report, through other means. We now have within the emergency management section on our website a new community map where we can inform the public of anything that's going on, such as evacuations, any kind of incident, et cetera. That ties directly into the software that we use to manage the Emergency Operations Center, so we can feed that information out to the public very quickly. So we've done a number of things to try to create that information. From one of the questions that was asked was, are we doing more sort of grassroots things like neighborhood phone trees and block captains and things like that? In the Leiden neighborhood, there is a Leiden Ready initiative that is doing a number of those things. So far, that's the neighborhood that's kind of furthest ahead in that. That sprung out of a workshop that we did with them last fall, where we had an outside consultant come in and sort of facilitate some combined community and city strategies to really work some of these things. So we are seeing some of those efforts get off the ground, and we're seeing some progress with those. Finally, we are working with GEVCOM excuse me, to better identify and understand where we have populations that have evacuation needs. Excuse me, I'm getting over cold. So GEVCOM has worked with us on some of our exercises.
Just take a moment, grab some water. Absolutely.
All right, see if that works. So through GEVCOM's information systems, we can identify, do you want to talk about some of the evacuation stuff that we're doing? Yeah. I'll jump back in a second.
Yeah, so as Brian was indicating that, evacuation concerns aren't just for certain communities in the perceived wildfire interface area. So we are looking at kind of a holistic approach in the entire community and kind of doing that risk-based analysis of where do we put most of our efforts and start solving problems from a systematic approach. If we take a potential solution and we can start applying that across the board in other communities and tweak it as we need for those individual specific intricacies that come with those communities. But by and large, a lot of the evacuation concerns that we have are not necessarily from 2 points of egress from a community. It's how protected is that egress from a wildfire threat. So if we look at, let's take Indiana, between 72nd and 80th, for example, there's a lot of vegetation along the roadway. So what we want to do for the evacuation is ensure that that roadway is protected so that it isn't overrun from fire. And there's a few areas, 82nd is another concern, obviously because of the one way in, one way out of Leiden. But we're trying to take this from a holistic approach and ensure that we look at the evacuation potential and what we can do, not necessarily from getting vehicles out, but those vehicles getting out, how do we protect them so that we can maintain that continuous flow? One of the big questions that a lot of people ask us in regards to evacuation, do you have plans for evacuations from certain communities? And unfortunately, there's just so many what-if scenarios that it's hard to plan for the specific event that we may be presented with. So we do work well with law enforcement, and they have procedures that they have in place to initiate those evacuations and control certain intersections so that the flow of traffic is in the way that we want it to go, so that we can also have, from a fire department perspective, access to get in and mitigate that problem.
I'll talk a little bit about some of the other efforts related to evacuation. I know this has been a topic related to development, how we review development, et cetera. At the moment, we do not have a lot of policy tools to specifically account for evacuation needs in development proposals. That's something we feel should be addressed. When you look at Colorado Springs, they have an ordinance that actually specifically ties evacuation analysis into development proposals. Boulder County has a similar piece. So those are the two major ones in Colorado, much more common in California. So there's a number of models out there in terms of how we can better integrate that evacuation analysis into development review. And I think that's something that we could really use here. Right now, we rely on more, I'll call it informal collaboration, but bringing in folks like myself, folks like Stephen, to look at different development proposals and see what some of the issues are. We have the fire code, of course, and that's a mechanism we can use, but it doesn't necessarily address evacuation specifically. So we think there's some opportunities there. I think when you look at how we want to do things in the future. For the comprehensive plan, for example, we've really tied emergency management and a hazard view into that from the beginning. And so as we're looking at future plans, et cetera, we are putting more of that perspective into what we're doing. So feel very good about what we're doing, but we could use more policy mechanisms in that respect. The last thing I'll mention in terms of evacuation is that we have created evacuation polygons for the city, which basically creates evacuation zones in the city and allows us to more quickly put evacuations out there. There's going to be a lot of education, a lot of work that has to go into helping neighbors and neighborhoods understand where are they in those zones, et cetera. And it's really a tool to help us make evacuation easier to educate, easier to execute as we look at it. We're doing modeling on neighborhoods, on kind of a neighborhood scale in terms of evacuation issues. We don't really have the tools or the expertise in-house to do it at a full city sort of system-wide perspective, but we are looking at risk areas, especially those that were flagged by the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, and we'll continue to look at that from an evacuation modeling perspective. We can also use those tools for modeling the impacts of potential developments on our neighborhoods and on some of the evacuation routes that we have in those neighborhoods. So we are doing a number of things now, and we have some capabilities that we can employ in that respect. So I think Stephen's going to talk next about some of our threats and what we're doing with those.
All right, so a lot of people have the misconception that we're looking at a drought right now, and in drought conditions, obviously that wildfire threat goes up. But what I'm trying to show in these pictures here is that even when we have wet winters, wet springs, and everything is green, we can still have wildfires. About a month ago, we put together a small little task force of Brian, myself, and the police department to look at, are there any bigger threats that would take advantage of the current drought situation? And what I put on here is what I feel and what the fire department feels is the biggest threat is our recreational fires, people illegally burning, warming fires, and fortunately most of the warming fires are not in our wildfire threat areas, and then trash and slash burning. As a more recent example, on Sunday afternoon, we had a structure fire right at 64th and Terry, I forget exactly which one it was. And that was somebody illegally burning construction materials that spread to the house. So we get by far more smaller fires like this that has that greater potential. And a lot of people don't pay attention to the weather. Unfortunately, even though people see it on the news, they get it on their apps, people are still burning like this in red flag days and other stage 1 and stage 2 fire bans. But what I want to kind of give everybody a perspective of is what do we do from the fire department perspective to be prepared and address these issues? So I don't expect anybody to really understand and see what's going on in these, but the left-hand graph is the hot, dry, and windy index that the U.S. Department of Agriculture and U.S. Forest Service put together. And what it looks at is temperature, the dryness of the air or humidity in the air, and wind speeds. And it puts some relative risk associated with those conditions. So we take that, and then on the right-hand picture, that little R2-D2 looking thing, we purchased, it's a ROS station. It's a remote automated weather station out at the Arvada Modelers Park. And what that does is it gives us specific weather data to our community. And we specifically put it in this location because that's where we're seeing the vegetation that we see throughout the city and our district, as well as those high winds. And what this is looking at is the how dry is the vegetation, what is that weather, the temperature, humidity, and wind, as well as the topography. We put all of this together, and what we do at the fire department, that graph in the middle, is we predict out a handful of days on what our active rating is going to be. And we're going to base our response off of these. So this is what our response levels look like based on that data that we gather from those sources. Preparedness level 1 is what we do day in and day out, days like today. We all carry both structural firefighting gear and wildland firefighting gear, so every day we're bringing both sets of gear so we can address those hazards even if we're out taking care of EMS calls or smoke alarm checks or something like that, that we are prepared based on our gear. But once we get into the fire danger rating of very high or extreme, in the 90th percentile of the hot, dry, and windy, we go up to our level 2. And what that does is all of our firefighters have wildfire training and certifications, but we'll look at the specific people that have more experience with wildfire, and we may rotate them throughout our district and put them on the west side, the people that have more experience in that. And then what we do on all calls, we will bring not only the engine or the truck, but we'll bring a brush truck as well for the stations that have that, so that we have all of the apparatus out on the road at the same time. And then if we have, if we're overstaffed for the day, we may not pull somebody off of an apparatus to put them in there. We'll just upstaff and have multiple apparatus going. And then when we get to level 3, and those are things like the PSPS days, where we have that really significant potential for a fire, we may bring in people on overtime to staff those additional apparatus as well. And then just an ongoing basis, we train all the time. We do have annual wildfire-specific trainings that we do. We do continual hands-on training in the classroom and at the station levels. One of the really cool pictures that I like is the one on the left. Kind of shows a map, and it's a sand table, And what we can do is we can put an aerial image of an area that we want to do a tabletop exercise for. And we build up the sand to mimic whatever that topography is, and then we can run a simulation and do that tabletop exercise with emergency management, with law enforcement, and come up with better ways to address this issue.
So moving from preparedness and talking about the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, I did hit some of these points, so I won't reiterate them, but in February of 2026, we formally finished this, and it will serve as a guiding document for us in terms of mitigation efforts, both things that we do from a city perspective as well as our interfaces with the neighborhoods. That neighborhood partnership is critical in terms of implementing the CWPP. We obviously control some lands through open space and those kinds of things, but when you look at even the CWPP process, we had 30 different stakeholder agencies involved at different points, all who control some aspect of fire and fire mitigation in Arvada. So it is a complex landscape, and those partnerships are really critical. So as we look at our own mitigation efforts, we're starting to look at funding, we're starting to look at which projects are the priorities from a mitigation perspective, but it's just as critical, and we have to spend just as much time working with the neighborhoods, both at the neighborhood scale as well as the individual resident scale. When you look at the neighborhood scale, some of the strategies that they can do around mowing and things of that nature are very critical. Stephen will show you the effect of that in some of the fires that we've already had and how important it can be. But even at the individual homeowner level, really looking at home hardening, looking at defensible space, things of that nature. The team from Arvada Fire will go out and do, home assessments and actually look at your fire risk within your home for free. I say that just as much for anybody who might be listening, because I think it's a tremendous service that we have. And I've personally seen a lot of neighbors and neighborhoods take advantage of those and see the impact that it can have. The education, the way that they work with homeowners is really important. And that's going to be a critical element of our strategy in terms of mitigation, because as a city, we only have so much control and we only have so much resources. And so those partnerships at the neighborhood and neighbor level are going to be really important. And Arvada Fire is a critical component of that as well. So as we look at, what else we can do, we're looking at things like water supply and where do we get water for firefighting? Where are there neighborhoods where they need to actually enhance their water supply? And the CWPP really laid out a number of those recommendations. Even as we're going out, we really encourage the neighborhoods to look at that appendix. We encourage the neighbors to look at the appendix that's focused on the individual neighbor actions they can take as homeowners, because that's going to be a really critical piece. So all of those elements have to be in place in order for us to really address it. As I mentioned, we're going to start really looking for funding for some of the larger mitigation projects that we want to look at. And as I mentioned previously, we are looking at those high-risk neighborhoods in the CWPP and where they are from an evacuation perspective, and any kind of things we might need to do in order to mitigate or improve the evacuation performance in those high-risk neighborhoods. And then on the next slide, I think you're going to talk about.
Yes, I think the beauty of us collaborating with the city in a joint CWPP is that it extends outside of the city, because obviously wildfire does not follow any geopolitical boundaries. So if you look at the map, and on the left-hand side, it's showing the communities of interest that were identified through the CWPP. And the color coding, I don't know if it shows up well on your side, but the darker the color, the higher the risk. And if you look, there's only one of those high risk in red that is actually within the city of Arvada, and that's up at Canyon Pines. But the nice thing about all of us working in conjunction on this is that if we can mitigate those hazards west of the city, the whole city to the east is going to be in a much better situation. So we are collaboratively working on that. And it's not only us with the city, we're working with Jefferson County and their fire management office, and we're working with West Metro Fire as well. And we'll start building relationships. As everybody understands, this is a big, complex issue, and we got to start small and build up to it. Hopefully here this year, if not next year, we're going to have, as Brian had mentioned, those home assessments that we do. There are programs out there that can easily share the information. We're all looking at the same stuff, and Jefferson County is going to fund that, to the best of my understanding at this point, to where we're all on the same page and we can do those home assessments. And really what that does is if a fire takes place, we have an understanding of where things have been mitigated and where we have to focus our concerns. So that's a big regional thing that I think will really provide a lot of benefit. But anytime you put this plan together, people are going to say, well, who's going to pay for it, right? Obviously, it's going to be on the property owner, but we want to try and help out the best that we can. So to the best of my ability, I'm budgeting for grant programs. And we have a small amount of money this year that we're hoping to get this grant program put together in the next few months to where people that want to do home hardening or defensible space on their property, they can come and apply for a grant through Arvada Fire. We can help assist them financially support those endeavors. I will take a moment to brag on some of our folks. So we've got Chris Warren, he's our wildfire mitigation specialist, and then Tracy Leva, he's a firefighter, a wildland firefighter, and one of our community risk reduction specialists. But the work that not only the two of them, but our community risk reduction division does is being seen nationwide. Tracy just received an award through the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and Arvada Fire is one of, if not the top agency in the nation as far as our interaction with the community, not only for wildfire mitigation, but preparedness through our Ready, Set, Go program, which we do have a few of the Ready, Set, Go kits. If anybody wants to grab those before, very good. Take them for friends, family, neighbors. And then this kind of transitions into the Arvada Wildfire Resiliency Code that you all adopted back in, what was it, April? Not going to go into too many details on this, but again, we mirrored this after the Jefferson County so that we can have consistency throughout the region. And really what we're looking at here in Zone 2 is we're going to focus really hard on structure hardening and that defensible space on properties. And then once we get into Zone 1, it's more of a focus on the home hardening so that if a wildfire does occur in a high wind situation, the ember cast that comes from those events, we can have those homes protected to where they don't contribute to the overall problem. This is a learning curve for all of us. This is new, and we're working collaboratively with planning and zoning and the building department to figure out the best way to accomplish this for all of the community.
I wanted to be sure and address the public safety power shutoffs. As Excel talks about a lot, these are meant to be a strategy to help reduce the risk of wildfire, but they have caused a number of ripples within our community. We've had a couple of now in Arvada, and it seems like we're always in the zone when they want to do these. So we have started working very closely with Jefferson County to start putting in consistent procedures and policies in place to help mitigate the components of this. We did a lot of work in the first PSPS, the first broad-scale PSPS in December, to learn what does it take to really manage one of these successfully from a community perspective. I won't obviously go into all the actions that we have here, but I want to start with, we're trying to get better at really the notification and the communication to our policymakers and to the community. Excel generally will try to notify us of a potential event 72 hours ahead of time, but I can tell you that what we get notified of and what the event actually looks like 72 hours later is generally quite a bit different. And so we have to work through that piece as well and balance, how much do we put concern out there in the community with giving people time to prepare. I can tell you, for example, in the original PSPS modeling in December, I believe that the numbers were 350,000 or 500,000 people were likely to be affected, and the number turned out to be like 120,000. So, there's just really a balance that we have to strike in terms of notification and communication with the community. But there are a number of things that we can do as a city in order to help prepare the community beyond just communication. So, for example, we will place generators on our critical intersections and the signals in those intersections because it really increases the danger when those signals go down during an event like this. We'll have standby crews for debris removal and the ability to move things off of power lines away from the streets, things of that nature. We work with the county to set up charging stations, warming centers, shelters, et cetera. So there's a number of things that we're really working to do to try to prepare and mitigate the impact in the community. And as I mentioned earlier, that is an enhanced staffing and more people on call for emergency response from our team. So I know that you all have heard a lot from the community on these, and I hear all the time, why don't you just tell Excel to stop doing them? If I had that power, I would, I don't know, I'd be in a very different position. But they are kind of a fact of life. We've heard from Excel quite a bit that they will be more frequent this summer. They're going to be something that we're going to deal with on a regular basis. And so we've really tried to prepare in cooperation with the county to be ready for that and to help mitigate the impact to the community. And so next, Stephen's going to talk about some of our mitigation strategies and mitigation projects.
So a lot of this mitigation can be done and should be done on individual properties, but sometimes there's a larger area that we can address. And these are some pictures of a recent project that we did about a month and a half ago at the Meadowbrook Park along the Van Bibber Trail. We teamed up with Team Rubicon, and we did a day and a half event where we went and reduced the fuels. And you can see on that lower middle picture those huge piles of the debris that we were able to remove, not only from healthy trees and dead and dying vegetation. If you look on the right-hand picture, you see somebody what we call limbing up a tree. We can have trees, we can have evergreens, we can have all of that stuff. We just want to make sure that if there is a ground fire, that there isn't a ladder fuel that will communicate up that tree and create a bigger problem. So what we do is we remove those fuels from that tree so that that ground fire does not go up and spread. But these are just examples of mechanical fuels mitigation that we can do, and that's really manpower and labor intensive. So it takes a lot of planning, and it takes a lot of time to complete, but we can't do them every day, every weekend, every month. So we have to be very cognizant of what our CWPP says and where we can really have the most effect in that. Another thing, I wish I had put a picture up on it, grazing is another idea that a lot of communities do, including Arvada up at around the Modelers Park. There was grazing up there for quite some time. I don't know if it's still going on right now. Yep. But that's another idea in certain areas that you can have, contracts with cattle companies to put their livestock out there to reduce those fuels as well. But as I had mentioned, they don't have to be these big grandiose projects. Little things such as mowing can accomplish a lot. And this was the 82nd fire that we had back in September of last year. And you can see how close this fire got to the southern edge of Leiden Rock. But it's really impactful when you see that where they mowed, you can see almost a straight line. So what we're trying to accomplish here is once that fire reaches that point, there's not enough fuel to continue that fire. So we kept it away from the fence, we kept it away from the vegetation in their backyards, and then we kept it away from the homes. Because if it continues down that path, then we have larger issues once structures get involved, because that ember cast, they're much larger embers, and they can start subsequent fires where the grasses really don't have enough energy to do that. So we want to keep those away from those bigger structures. As Brian had mentioned earlier, prescribed burning is an option, right? It's a very good option to control a fire to reduce those fuels. And we can do that from a response perspective, but we're starting behind the 8 ball, right? If an unintentional fire starts, we have to get enough resources there to put the fire out. Where with prescribed burning, what we do is we put a plan together and we mitigate it around the perimeter of what we want to burn to make sure that it doesn't overlap into those areas, and we'll have the resources there to mitigate those issues. The pictures I put on here don't really do it justice, especially because I couldn't get the right perspectives, but the Plainview fire that we had, I think it was late last year along Highway 72 and 93, that left-hand picture is where it burned, and then the right-hand picture, you can kind of see the difference in color in the grasses that are out there. We hadn't gotten any precipitation, but that grass started turning green, and we would rather it be green than dead. So it does have a lot of benefit to doing prescribed burning, and I won't read through that whole list there on the left, but there's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through. And it's not only locally here with the fire department of the city. We have to work with CDPHE for the smoke that's being released. We have to work with Jefferson County and the state of Colorado through their Division of Fire Prevention and Control, where we have to have qualified people to oversee these burns and approve them before we can even put any fire on the ground. So that's just something up for consideration. I know there's a lot of concern from the community when we introduce fire into it, but there is a lot of benefit to that.
And then lastly, I'll talk about the Jefferson County Hazard Mitigation Plan update that's in process. These basically take place every 5 years, and they're a requirement from a FEMA perspective in order to get many types of mitigation funds. These take an all-hazard approach, so they're not just focused on wildfire. It's everything from shifting soils and earthquakes and hurricanes and floods, et cetera. And so this basically it starts at the county level and then works with all of the jurisdictions within the county. So right now, there's a focus on building the county plan as well as an Arvada-specific annex that deals with our hazards, our issues, our mitigation plans. It updates what we've done for the past 5 years since the last one of these, as well as what we still see as priorities and the things that are going forward. So we've been working through this. Arvada Fire has been a key partner in this as well. This will eventually come back in front of council. So when we're at the point where we have that Arvada specific annex draft and things of that nature, it will come back to council for consideration. Adoption by council is a precursor for us getting some of the federal mitigation funds that are out there and things that we could use on some of our priorities. Our plan is obviously heavily focused on wildfire, but we do have other risks, including flood, et cetera, that are covered by that hazard mitigation plan. When tied in with the CWPP, it really gives us a very powerful platform to go seek funding from because we can sort of demonstrate. And I will say Arvada has a very good history of doing what we said we were going to do in terms of mitigation. If you look at what we said we were going to do 5 years ago, we've done quite a bit of it. And the things that we haven't, there's usually a pretty good reason why we didn't. So, I mean, when you look at it, this kind of plan really helps us in terms of going out and pursuing funding, as well as guiding our mitigation efforts. And so probably we'll see this in the fall come back in front of council, but I did want to make everyone aware of this because there's extensive community outreach going on, a lot of focus on getting to communities that aren't necessarily talked to a lot about these kinds of things and making sure that their input is heard. And so when we come back in the fall, we should have a good plan for you to consider. So these are the things that we wanted to bring before you today and discuss. I'm certainly happy to take any questions that council may have.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
So I know the county got a hold of a lot of money around this, and I think they also got FTEs, employees, to help mitigate. Are we engaged with them because I think they get like 40 firefighters added to the sheriff's department. Are we engaged to, like on page 9, you showed areas of mitigation that are in the county. Are we working with them to make sure that they focus on that area?
We are. I'll mention just there's a lot of coordination going on with their fire management office and the efforts that they've got going, both to make sure that we can use those resources here, but also coordinate on even just policy and some of the approaches, et cetera. You want to talk in more detail? Or?
Yeah, so for quite some time, there's been this group called the Mountain Metro Wildfire Mitigation Council. A lot of acronyms there. But we are involved with that, and it's all Jefferson County fire departments, not only those of us that work in prevention and mitigation, but the response aspect as well. And this group, as of last year, is now run by the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. So we have continual interaction with them on a monthly basis. And as with anything, you got to make your pitch and show them that that's the most important thing. Fortunately, surrounding Arvada, there's a lot of unincorporated areas. So I think in conjunction with the CWPP, that we can make a lot of good decisions with the county to start reducing that hazard. But they are building out that program as we speak, because I think they're hiring something like 40, 45 people over the course of about a year and a half. But the nice thing is they have people that will provide education, not only in unincorporated areas, but anywhere that they need to assist. They have fuels mitigation crews that can go out there and help us with projects, and then they have that response and suppression aspect as well.
Yeah, I was talking to Brian over there, Keating, about those mitigation crews. So if they're not fighting fires, can they get that whole crew just rolling? Obviously, they got to hire 45 people or whatever, but I'm just curious how much we're engaged with them to address that, since some of it's out of the city. As just a side note, just so you know, and I think you know this, Highway 72 to Highway 119 is the highest burn probability in the state, so I'm interested in that. If I put my day job on, I will tell you we started cutting down trees today on Highway 72 for 40 miles. 900 trees.
That's great.
And there's 1,600 on 119. So, I think everyone is trying to mitigate. So I appreciate this is timely. I don't know who scheduled this, but good job. I think it's timely, just because it's on everyone's tip of mind, at least out west. And it's definitely for me when I realize in the fire prevention maps that you see the burn probability, the highest in the state is just right here in our backyard.
Absolutely.
It kind of worries me. So I appreciate you guys doing this. This is a good job on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Thank you for the presentation and all the work you've done on this. And there's a lot of work that's been happening around this. And I'm trying to keep track of the different pieces, like the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, the Wildfire Resiliency Code, the WUI Code, and then you talked about the Jeffco Mitigation Plan. So there's a lot of moving parts. And so I guess my question for you is, for our general public, where should we direct them to get easy, accessible resources on what to do and how to prepare? What do you recommend for that?
Yeah, I'll speak from the fire department perspective. Starting with our website, we've got multiple pages that we're working on consolidating into one just wildfire page, and there you're going to be able to get resources on every piece of that: the CWPP, the Wildfire Resiliency Code, efforts that we're doing throughout the community, and probably most importantly is they can sign up and request us to come out and do those home assessments. And they're primarily done by these two gentlemen over here. And as we get more than we can handle with two people, we have the start of a program to train our operational staff. So as you may be aware, we'll go and do home safety checks that looks at the interior of the home to make sure that slips, trips, and falls, smoke alarms, cooking safety, a whole slew of things. And the firefighters do that as well. So hopefully we can come up with some sort of risk-based assessment where the citizen puts in some general information about their home, and this kind of ties in with that program that the county is going to get for all of us, where if it's a lower risk, we can send the crews out there and we can be a force multiplier, because there's a lot more of them than there are of us that just are in the office Monday through Friday. So starting with our website, calling us, emailing us, getting a home safety check. We'll go out there, we'll give them these ready, set, go bags, we'll give them ideas and suggestions on how to protect their property and spread the word throughout their community.
So the home assessment checks are now both interior and exterior?
It depends on what they request. So if they request just a home assessment, we're going to look at the exterior of the home for home hardening and defensible space. But we could absolutely do both at the same time.
Great. I think that's important to do both nowadays.
Right.
And then my next question is, with our emergency office, we're going to be looking at our climate action sustainability plan next week, and so I hope you're in coordination with that, because especially comes to mind the public safety power shutoffs. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, council, but I think having a more sustainable local source of energy to provide our residents in those times of the shutoff, whether it's a microgrid system, solar gardens that we can tap into, and battery system. There's many things we can be looking at to help have a more robust, resilient community when we do have those power shutoffs.
I'm really glad you asked that question. You'll actually see in that plan a number of ties directly into emergency management. Even thinking about things like when we deploy in the field, are we taking solar generators that are renewable versus gas-powered generators? And we can't use those for everything, but our the charging stations that I talked about earlier, for example, will all run off of solar generators. And so we are very tied into that plan and continue to focus on how can we do that. We have a mass care trailer, for example, that we got from a grant through FEMA. They provided us with a gas generator. We've now supplemented it with solar generators to run those sites when we do that. So it is an important part of how we're approaching it, and I think you'll see a number of ties in that plan.
Great, I'm glad to hear that. And then my last comment, you talked about grazing. What about goats? Every time I drive up through Superior, I see that cute herd of goats up there. And I think, can we have those? Because I think that's, not only are they really great at what they do and help reduce fire risk in their grazing efforts, but I think they're a great community way to, engage the community in what we're doing and get them and help educate around mitigation efforts because everyone loves goats.
Big fan of goats. Yeah, they are very effective. And like you said, the easiest thing is when you make a community event about goats coming into the area. And so we do see that in some of the neighborhoods in Arvada are starting to use that as a strategy. And some of those that have more extensive open space, et cetera, it's a great opportunity really for them to engage in. It is a very effective strategy.
Good, well, I hope we can see more goats.
Yeah.
Thanks.
There's llamas. Llamas are used as well.
So.
I'm pretty sure we had it was either a llama or an alpaca running down Highway 93 the other day. It was very funny. I second goats in particular because they can eat anything. They're even better than cows in that respect. I only had really one question. Mayor Pro Tem Mormon was sort of elucidating some of the long-term things we can do in terms of the upcoming PS events. However, I'm also thinking about what we can do in the immediate term to help our residents. And this, I guess, maybe is a sort of a request for support. Are there information that we can be sharing out now about, what to have in your go bag? I know we have that, but where will charging stations be set up? Where can the public just know in advance before an event happens, okay, I'm going to have to work from home today, but I'm going to grab my laptop and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to be able to work from here while my house is shut down, et cetera. I guess that's sort of my request is, can we have those messages available? Can we starting to socialize that information now with the public?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Mayor. And we're trying to really tie in closely with Jefferson County on that. And the reason why is because so many of the places that we'll set up from charging stations or warming centers, et cetera, we coordinate with the county. And so what we're trying to do is a little bit more of a formula that says, if it's this scale, this is how many charging stations we need, things like that. So I think we can get there relatively quickly, but it is something that we're working on.
Okay, great. I would love to be able to include that in my newsletter. I know my fellow colleagues, we would love to be able to amplify this and support these efforts to help educate our public. All right, I see no additional lights. Thank you both so much this evening for your efforts and for putting this whole plan together. It's amazing. All right, our next workshop this evening is the 2027 Water, Wastewater, and Stormwater Rates and Fees Workshop. Ms. Rhodes, I believe you have this item, and Ms. Gray. Come on in.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about a very exciting topic, and to me it is very exciting, water, sewer, and stormwater utilities. This evening we're kicking off our annual utility workshop series. And so for the newer councilors, this is something we do every year. We have 3 to 4 workshops ahead of request for adoption of rates and fees. And so this is our kickoff foundational information workshop. Before we jump into the slides, I wanted to say thank you for your support over the many years that we've been talking about rates and fees. It's an annual conversation. There's a lot of robust questions and concerns from your part, and we try our best to answer them, so we will start that this evening and keep moving. The picture that you see is one that we've shown in previous presentations, and that is a Your Utility Rates at Work sign that we've put up in projects. And so last year, this picture was on Sheridan for one of the wastewater projects. We're going to bring it back this spring, so you'll see it somewhere around town. I can't remember exactly where we're going to put it, but it'll be a surprise when you see it. But it is a useful tool for us to show our residents and visitors that the project that you're driving through, which might be very frustrating because it's slowing you down, is actually something that we are doing with the rates that our customers pay to us. So we appreciate this visual for our customers to know what's going on where they're driving. So again, these workshops are intended to inform you ahead of some decisions that we'll ask you to make. We do an annual review of our needs and priorities, communicate those with you. We also work on a 10-year financial plan to ensure fiscal sustainability. So one of the things that we heard today from our city manager and our chief financial officer was the wisdom behind a 10-year plan. We want to make sure that we can pay for something not just 1 year or 2 years and be sustainable for 1 year or 2 years. We want a full 10-year picture of that. And since we've kicked off our budget processes officially and unofficially, we heard that message today, so thank you for the reminder. We then talk with you over the course of the summer and early fall about what some foundational information is, and then we bring back some scenarios to you that are based on some different packages of spending. And then again, we ask for you to adopt rates and fees in October along with the budget process. So we've had this slide up in some different presentations before, but as a reminder, our enterprise funds are different than the city's general fund. So our enterprises are intended to run as a business. They are government-owned businesses. We receive revenue in return for providing a good or service. So we deliver water, we remove wastewater, we remove stormwater efficiently. And this is a state constitution definition, so we are running as we should. We have to set revenues to cover our costs, and we come to you to request those adoptions. And there is the ability to take in some non-enterprise funds to help the enterprises, but when you get to a certain point, that challenges the status that we have as an enterprise. So we are very thoughtful about loans that we get, any other funds that we receive. This slide talks about the fact that some of our revenues are paid by different customers, and oftentimes the same customers. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see rates and fees. On the right-hand side, you see system development charges. Left-hand side, rates and fees. Our current customers pay their utility bill, and that covers our operations, our maintenance, our salaries, our benefits, our system repair and replacement, or R&R. It pays for debt obligations, so our debt service is paid for by our rates and fees. And we use those funds to replace existing infrastructure, not any upsizing. On the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see system development charges. Those are also known as tap fees or connection fees. We charge those to developers or anybody who's permanently increasing their water or sewer use, because we do charge them for water and sewer. Those pay for access to our water and sewer systems. So we, when we receive those funds, can tell you, yes, you have a place in our system. We are holding that access for you. And it's basically growth paying for growth. So you might think of some of our wastewater projects, which are a combination of not only repairing and replacing existing pipelines, but also increasing to address planned growth. So we set the tap fees or the system development charges appropriately for that component, and the rates and fees for the R&R component. You will see there's an asterisk with the word debt at the bottom, and we use debt as a tool to help us smooth our rate and fee impacts to our customers. So if I have lived in Arvada for years and years and years and pay my rates and fees for something that's coming in, and Jacqueline moves in tomorrow, I want to make sure that she also pays for the asset that she'll be using. And so we like debt because everybody pays for the debt service on something that everybody is using. We call that generational equity, which is a really wonky term, but it does explain that generations of people will pay for the thing. So wanted to give you a little bit of information about our customers, the bills that they pay, and our systems. Our customers are primarily single-family residents. So we have 40,000 accounts. 92% of those are for single-family homeowners. We deliver them 6 billion gallons of safe water annually. We remove a lot of wastewater, and we provide these services 24/7, 365. And something that I take for granted but might be a little bit unclear is that we call our residents and our businesses and our parks folks customers because they pay a bill to us. So instead of saying residents, because not all of our customers are residents, we refer to them as customers. To walk through a bill, and it's a little bit busy, but we'll step through it a little bit. We charge for 4 services. Not all of our residents take advantage of all 4 services. Some of them have water service somewhere else or sewer service somewhere else. Some folks have 0 impervious area on their property, and so they don't pay a stormwater charge. And as you remember from our conversations a couple weeks ago, not all of our customers are enrolled in our waste program. But you'll see on this bill representation, all of the personal identifying information has been removed, but you can see a customer's number, account number, and customer number are shown. This is a 2025 bill, so it's from last summer. You'll see a due date and the amount due. You'll see where that customer has paid their bill, so you'll see the credit. And you'll see the 4 different types of charges along the left-hand side. So water charges is a combination of a service fee, which is fixed, and a volumetric or consumption fee. So this customer used 16,000 gallons times the rate per gallon gives you the total for that consumption. And we roll up that total water fee on the right-hand side. Sewer charges, very similar. We have a fixed fee that's charged every 2 months, we do bi-monthly billing. Instead of metering wastewater, which would be kind of gross, we take your winter usage and we assume that that's what you use indoor all year, and we bill you on that, and then we update it regularly. You'll see that amount is rolled up on the right-hand side as well. The stormwater fee is based on your impervious area, or things like concrete, asphalt, things that water rolls off of. That shows under the consumption line, so this person has 3,343 square feet of impervious area times the stormwater fee, that's rolled up on the right, and then the waste and recycling fees. We do show our customers a snapshot of their consumption from the previous year so they have some gauge of how they're doing, and then we show you where your bill is due on the calendar. And then finally, our core services are provided through a mostly, but not entirely, invisible infrastructure network. So you can see in the graphic, we have above ground and below ground, and we have a couple of houses, we have a grocery store, we have a water tank, which wouldn't probably be that close to homes, but it's an above ground asset. And then underground is a whole network of piping for water and sewer and storm. This does not show fiber, this does not show any other thing that would be underground, it's just a utilities snapshot. And we do have a lot of stuff in the ground, so you can see all the numbers on the left-hand side, but we manage a lot of things that most people never see or are aware that exist unless they're driving over a construction project. So delivering these services requires a significant amount of planning and prioritization, and we've taken guidance from City Council on how to do that. We look at this in respect to a number of things. One of the most important guidance documents for us is the strategic plan that you have adopted. And so we look at a couple of things we'll show you in here, but we also look at the Infrastructure 8 guideline, which is to develop and implement aligned infrastructure master plans and sustainable financial strategies. And you'll hear that theme throughout our workshop series, is we're trying to be aligned with what you want from us, as well as planning and being sustainable. So you've heard us mention before that this body directed us back in 2019 and 2020 to start doing some system planning, which we have done, and it's a very iterative process. So our system planning relies on identifying project needs, how to solve those needs, implementing those projects, and then updating them regularly. And so from 2019, we are already now into the second round of system planning that we started back then. So this is, again, we're continuing to update our planning documents. Every 5 to 7 years, we like to do that. We take those, we line them out, we see which are the most critical to do, we come to you and we talk about what we would like to proceed with, and then we take your direction from there. So again, mentioning the strategic plan, the goal that, or the result that speaks most to us is the physical and technology systems strategic result. So we want to make sure that our city and community are connected with reliable and accessible systems. Goal 6 is to close that infrastructure deficit, because we do have some, and funding gaps, which we also have. And we do that by implementing goal number 2, identifying and prioritizing the projects that need to happen to close those deficits. We use many approaches for planning our projects. So you'll see a graphic here. It's the cover sheet of a couple of industry documents. We work very closely with the American Water Works Association. Many of us are members of AWWA. It is a worldwide organization that provides data, research information. It is the go-to for water and, to some extent, wastewater planning. So AWWA provides us with guidance on everything from meter installation to best practices for financial conversations to how to treat water. It is everything, and they are a fabulous organization. Part of what they do is provide us guidance on level of service, and we'll talk more about that. But we also have our asset database that we update on a regular basis. The engineering team tracks, I believe, every asset that is worth more than $20,000. So it is a very long list. And they go through that asset database, I believe, every 2 years. Each member of the team rotates who's responsible so that they become aware. Level of service, or LOS, updates are something that we also provide on a regular basis. We do that internally. And then we also have some criteria for prioritization, and we'll walk through some of that. So this is a busy graph, but what we want to tell you is that our asset database looks at many things to help us prioritize what we need to work on. So as you have heard from us in the past, we've had a lot of infrastructure installed because we had a huge population growth in the 50s through the 70s. So our infrastructure is aging. Some of this infrastructure is at or getting to the end of its life. So we need to keep on top of that so that it's useful. On the busy chart, we've got a peach-colored area in the top right, and that is where we have our priority projects in that zone. So if you look at resiliency across the x-axis on the bottom and asset replacement along the the y-axis on the left, we have some assets that don't have much longer to live, but we require them for resiliency. So again, that's one way that we look at what needs to happen to keep our system up to par. Again, the level of service that I mentioned is based on a number of things. So again, industry standards, best practices, regulatory requirements, those are changing all the time, and then our customer expectations. So we have 15 utility areas. We have defined goals for each of those. We talk about those across the utility, and we make it a point to have that conversation with our operations team so we're all on the same page. It's not one group of people telling everybody this is how it's going to be. We have heated discussions sometimes about what needs to happen and why and what's a priority and what's not. But eventually we end up with a list of projects that I'll show you on the next slide that we all agree need to happen. This goes hand in hand with our asset management. We use that database regularly. We update it all the time, and we communicate this with our customers in a variety of ways. We've had information on our utilities transparency website on the city's page, and we do reference it, or at least have in the past, in the Arvada report when we're talking about infrastructure. So this color coding might look familiar to some of you. The intent is not for you to be able to read the document in the tiny font. It is more for a demonstration that this is a document that we put together, and this is for one fund, that's for the water fund, that shows our planning forecasts for 10 years. So as I mentioned earlier, we want to look out 10 years to see what our needs are. This is the document that we use to show that. We color code those projects by their level of criticality that we have defined. So red projects, by nature of the color red, those are highly critical. Orange are medium critical, and yellow are low critical. And what we will do is come back to you in July and August and talk about what it would take to fund these different package levels. Everything, only the red and orange. And so there's more to come on that. We'll provide you with a document as we move forward in the process. And again, thank you to this group for providing us with feedback last year. We had feedback from council to make it an easier document to read and understand. So we rolled up projects so that they were not quite so numerous, but fell underneath categories. And then also provided what the consequences are to not doing the project, because that is information that will help you make some decisions moving forward. So thank you for that feedback. We are in the middle of the budget process, as I mentioned, so we don't have a current document, but again, we'll bring that back to you. And I will turn the rest of it over to Jacqueline.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Ms. Rhodes.
Well, good evening. As Chris mentioned, we've been on this journey together for some time. Since the council asked us to renew our master plans and then implement some strategies to actually put them to work, we had to work together on what our funding strategies look like. We've been implementing this since about 2022 when we worked with council to adopt a roadmap. And I put a snippet of a slide in here from an April 2022 workshop where we had a number of discussions around how do we support both our infrastructure needs and keep pace with planned development in our community. And do we want to look to embark on this journey together, recognizing that we have to adjust rates and service fees and system development charges in order to construct this infrastructure, or should we extend the schedule and really look at slowing the pace at which we implement some of these projects, all the way down to a no-action type model where we really do start to have some of those difficult conversations around level of service, risk, and affecting the pace of plan development. So together we've been on this journey for what we call the roadmap scenario, which has involved some steady increases over time as we've been implementing these projects. And what did that look like? Well, we've been coming to you for these annual rate adjustments. We've been having difficult discussions around service fee adjustments as well and how those align over time. And we've issued a significant amount of debt. In 2022, we issued $50 million of bonds on the water fund and $50 million on the sewer fund. And in July of 2025, we issued another $90 million of debt on the water fund and $15 million on the sewer fund. In the appendix, we wanted to provide you with a snapshot of some information on our spending forecast for those bonds. We've completely spent down the 2022 $50 million water. And then in the sewer fund, we show you both the 50 and 15 together in that spending forecast in the appendix. We'll be bringing back more information about specific projects, their status. The message that we wanted to convey with the information in the appendix is that you'll see our progress in spending and putting those dollars to work. I also want to emphasize that we continue to look at a number of different funding options. So this includes not only the bond funds that we talked about, but what loans could be available, what grants can we apply for, and then recently we've had some success with community project funding or congressionally directed spending projects on our North Trunkline sewer, for example, so we can continue to try and package a number of different financial options for implementing our projects. Another big piece of our annual discussions that we'll be continuing to have with you through this series of workshops is around affordability. And we know that we need to continue to offer a diverse set of programs for our customers to help our most vulnerable customers continue to manage their utility bills. So this slide just shows a snapshot of some recent history, at least over the last 5 years, of what programs we have available and how our customers are utilizing those programs, or the number of customers utilizing those programs. And what that can look like is a payment plan that we work with, an equalization plan, or we call this budget billing, to help you smooth out the impact of the bi-monthly bills that you may receive. And then we offer one-time bill credits or hardship credits. And what I wanted to share with you some updates here, not only the year-to-date numbers that we're seeing in 2026, but also the direction that you gave us last year to make some changes to these programs. So first of all, it used to be a one-time hardship credit of $100 per account. We have modified that to one time per year. Equalization plans do continue. And also, we have talked about, and we're in the process of implementing a bill credit that's aligned with our resident tax rebate program. Again, affordability is something difficult for the utility to shoulder by itself, but we want to make sure that we stand up some programs that are available for our customers to take advantage of. I want to also highlight that also, as we concluded last year, we did some surveying of our customers, and so those who may have been subject to a shutoff or contacting us for support with these programs. We have some survey data that we reviewed. It was very interesting to see a range of responses. Some you won't be surprised to hear about systems and needing support working our way through our systems to be able to view your bill or have auto pay. And I'm excited to announce as of May 7th last week, you now have some better options for that. We have over 1,000 customers in less than a week who have signed up for that auto pay option since we made it available last week. So really excited. Thank you for the support and working with us as we got that set up. But again, this is just a snapshot. We know we have more work to do to communicate what's available to our customers, and we'll be looking for more feedback from you as we continue these rate and fee discussions. And finally, speaking of the work we have to do, we recognize we can always strengthen community understanding. We do it, yes, through some conversations with you, but we need to both engage our active committees and really do some more work. So Chris mentioned earlier, we do have a utilities transparency page that tries to capture some of the key information and decisions we're making, how and why, and link to our materials. But we are in the process of standing up a community advisory group, and this is really about stewardship. So we want this community group that we're standing up for. This is an ad hoc group, shorter in nature, probably now through 2030 as we do this historic level investment in our infrastructure to really work and come alongside us to think about, yes, we need to focus on safe, reliable infrastructure services at the lowest practical rates. We want that transparency around having some clear and transparent decision-making. And so bringing a group along with us to talk through the trade-offs and that prioritization process that Chris started to walk you through of the different tools and how we help convey what the consequences are of the projects that we're trying to prioritize, and then give us feedback on those financial strategies so that we're incorporating that additional information and community perspective of what affordability looks like, how we can implement some of these financial strategies so that we're promoting and informing and educating our community alongside us as we make these difficult decisions. So right now we're putting together this application process where I'm standing up basically some information sessions, and what we would hope for is council's support in putting the word out to the community to go ahead and apply and come join us at those information sessions and see if they're interested in helping serve on this group. So where do we go from here? We have a July 28th workshop. And as Chris mentioned, we kicked off the budget process. In fact, we had our budget kickoff session today. We're in the process of submitting all of our updated capital project costs and operations financial information, and we'll bring that back to you with some rate and fee scenarios for you to consider at those different spending package levels at the July 28th workshop. Typically, we get a lot of information. We have some questions that we need to follow up on, and we use the August 25th workshop to follow up. We're holding a September date to see if any additional information is needed, but as Chris mentioned, we'll have first and second reading in October for those next steps for rates and fees. So what I would love to hear from you tonight is what feedback do you have for us of what you'd like to see to be fully informed in this annual process, and what direction would you like to see us head?
Thank you. Councilmember Ambrose.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you for the presentation. Both of you, I really appreciated it. On the slide where you talked about the hardship fee and the $100 credit being offered to folks and its utilization, I also recall at that time we switched from doing liens and no water shutoffs to doing water shutoffs that could lead to condemnations. And so I just would like a report. Always to have a report anytime you do a presentation on the payment compliance, because I also know that switching that brought so many more households into compliance to being current on their utilities, which is a huge improvement. But I also am always concerned about how many condemnations have happened just due to the inability to pay for water. Usually, it seems like since we've implemented the program, the condemnations that have happened, the water is not the only thing going on at that property. There's lots of other issues. So I think just making sure that we are as sensitive as possible to condemning a home just because inability to pay water, continuing to be paying attention to that. I would just like to hear report backs on it. I know you probably don't have it tonight, because if you did, you would present it on it, but just to make sure we're always informed on that.
Thank you. We can bring that and include that in the process.
And just for the record, I think we're discussing liens on homes, not condemnations. Yeah, liens.
So to be clear, I think what Councilmember Ambrose is referring to is that if there's a long sustained period of no water service to a property, that could lead to condemnation.
Okay.
So we do try and work with customers, again, work to get their water restored, but that is what, to maintain public health, could happen if an extended period of no water service.
Excellent.
Yes,
Okay.
Mayor, if I recall, we used to do liens, and they were very hard to collect, and it wasn't bringing people into compliance with payment, and then we switched to
Right.
this other system.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, let me try and clarify. So
Yeah.
yes, we still have a lien process, but the
Okay.
shut-off process has helped reduce the number of liens that we ultimately reach, because through a
Okay.
shut-off, we're able to work with customers to, again, restore water service, collect payment. And so we can present some of the trends of how the number of liens has decreased since implementing the
Great.
shut-off process.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. So, yeah, I think both of us are asking the same question. So, Mayor Pro Tem Mormon.
Thank you. I first just want to commend you on the community advisory group. I think that's a fantastic idea, and I'm excited to see that get going. Happy to help get the word out. So is there on our website now a place to apply? Is that correct?
I will be sure to share that. It is not currently on the website.
Okay.
We're in the process of putting it in our Arvada report and standing up that webpage, so we'll make that available to you to share out with you.
Wonderful.
Thank
Great.
you.
Well, I'll look forward to that. And then my second comment or other comment is auto pay. I did it today. It's so easy. So all you need is your bill to get your customer number and so forth, and it's really, really easy. So make sure you do it. Thanks.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
The only thing I have is on the prioritization spreadsheet, because I'm the one that probably brings that up probably all the time. Can we just make sure, because I felt like last time we were just moving things into criticality levels. I would like to see the red not just be the next critical item from going up. Red should be truly critical, high critical, not just go from orange to red just because all the reds are getting addressed. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I should show no reds, just some orange and some yellow, because I think we funded we peppered, I guess, funding kind of went in different groups, but, right.
Thank you for that feedback. Yes, there are some projects that are year-over-year projects that remain in the red as we're still in the process of designing and delivering those projects. And as you mentioned, we'll be careful to make sure that things aren't just moving up because they're next in line.
Right.
They're really red because of how we've defined that level of criticality.
Right.
And to that point, we are working this year to, yes, we've bundled some projects that belong together, but even break apart some projects. So, for example, our annual water line replacement program, that's historically been a yellow program, last year was not fully funded. This year, we've broken out segments that do meet the red criticality criteria, so you can see where the most critical segments are that have to be done in the short term, with the ideal replacement framework being included in the yellow. So you'll see those actually broken out to better address that comment you made.
So when you do that, you're not requesting to spend money on a critical and then come back with a yellow project later and.
Well, there would be unique pipeline segments. So
Yeah.
before we had the
So
program.
the red would be just that segment, but
Mhm.
you're not gonna, but the rest of the yellow could be outside of that criticality. So if we approve all the reds, just to say, for example, say, yeah, we agree with you, let's get the reds out of the way, or whatever you present, you're only taking care of that one segment.
Correct.
What I'm just saying is, if the yellow segment, because it's once all yellow, and because one segment of the yellow became red, I know we're using a lot of colors, that the yellow is not coming in and replacing the red that we might have already pre-funded. In other words, wasting funds, putting out bad funds over a project, if that makes sense.
I think I understand what you're saying, and we'll make sure we're careful about
Yeah.
yellows remaining yellow if they remain in that kind of criticality
Yeah, and if we
class.
replace the red area and we say, yeah, this makes sense, the 2 miles needs to be done, but the 15 miles is still yellow, that you break that out clearly, and that those are 2 separate projects,
Yeah.
not just a whole segment, if that makes sense.
I think so. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay. Because that helps us kind of judge how much money and what we're doing, and when we get into it, because I know some new council members haven't been through the percentage game, and it'll probably be a long evening when that happens. So the more clarity around that spreadsheet, I think, drives that conversation.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Levison.
Thank you so much. So I'm of the mindset often of do fewer things better. The more we limit and simplify, the more we can accomplish. So off of that, I appreciate the idea of strengthening community engagement around utilities. That said, I would just also like to encourage us to pause whenever possible before creating additional boards and commissions or committees until we create clearer structure and alignment for the groups we already have. So just a thought moving forward, before adding something new, I think we should first ask, is there an existing combination of boards and commissions that could advise the work who already exists? And just figuring out how maybe, if possible, we can engage some folks already engaged in the community. Also, on the water conservation side of things, how much of an effect could that have when it comes to funding? Pun completely intended, but how can we ride the drought wave to kind of shift people's mindsets and behaviors around water conservation and practices they can do within their own home?
Thank you for that question. So starting with the second question first, we've already been talking as a team, or what drought-related practices can we memorialize and can carry forward into the future? So for example, having a 3-day-a-week watering schedule that already works with assigned days is something that is a more commonplace practice in other neighboring communities. That is something that we could continue even outside of this drought period. We want to continue to enhance, for example, the Resource Central programs. So there's a lot of behaviors and principles that we can continue to move forward with. In terms of how those affect our financial strategies, anytime we can shave the peak and control any capacity-related changes, that's important. But the renewal and investment in having reliable infrastructure is still something that we're going to have to focus on and fund aside from the conservation efforts. I hope that answered your second question. In terms of the first, I'd love to have the body of the council's feedback. I see this specific community group as being more of an ad hoc, not a formal board that has a charter similar to what some of our existing boards and commissions operate under. There's a lot of alignment with Sustainability Committee, Parks Advisory Committee, and so certainly there could be some interplay with the existing groups. And I think this is a unique opportunity to really go deep and specialized in some of the difficult utilities-related decisions. And I know we have a very informed community of professionals probably interested and ready to serve in this type of capacity. And so that's why we did propose this separate and unique group, perhaps only through the 2030 timeframe, because that's really aligned with this roadmap kind of historic level of reinvestment we're doing over this decade in our water and sewer and stormwater systems. And so that was the thinking or the background there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Griffith.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you for the presentation. I wanted to call back to a couple months ago when Councilmember Levison and I actually got a chance to tour our wastewater treatment facilities. And I think that there is a lot that our residents don't know about how complicated wastewater treatment is. I don't think that they generally know that we have 2 facilities and both are dated. Sorry?
Water.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought that's what you were jumping in to say.
Yep, fair enough. No, not wastewater. Sorry, thank you very much for that, because very important. We're not recycling our wastewater and putting it back in the pipe. Thank you for that clarification. But I think a lot of residents don't know we have the 2 facilities. We use one when we're working on the other. Both of them are very dated. Both of them we're looking at solutions for improving them. That's a lot of what we're talking about tonight. And I think that's a story that residents would be very interested to learn more about, so I'm glad we have these kind of outreach efforts that we're doing. I wanted to talk about something that's just a general concern of mine, and maybe I don't really have a solution for it, but it's maybe something that we could talk about as we move through for future workshops. My concern is that when we talk about water conservation and water usage in rural versus urban context, obviously it's more efficient in urban context. We're using less water because per person, per square foot, all that, right? But there's a co-benefit to basically vegetation, greenery, tree canopy, all these things that happen in more rural contexts that become very difficult to manage with water rates that are flat, right? We don't charge a different rate for our customers that live in a rural area versus that live in an urban area. It's the same rate structure. Is that correct?
If they're both residential customers, yes.
Yeah, and so I think potentially we could see a scenario there that we're basically disincentivizing tree care or lawn care or vegetation in general that we could be realizing a co-benefit from as a city. And I think this is something where I would encourage conversations with the forestry department. I know that there are concerns with different trees that are specifically vulnerable to drought conditions. And if we have residents that are pulling back on their water usage, like we're telling them to do right now, right, because we're in a drought condition, we may end up losing things that are very hard to get back, tree canopy. I'm thinking about that specifically. So this isn't so much of a specific request, it's just a line of thinking that I'd like to be included when we're having these workshops and conversations, because, I mean, we're not just talking about like grasses and things that we can grow up pretty quickly. We're talking about generational efforts to get a canopy that right now is not adequate. And I'd be concerned if we would push residents into a position where they're not watering trees or taking care of their own trees on their property because they're worried about water rates. I don't know if that means that there's an ability to sort of look at a rate based on trees or other vegetations, or even if you got a home garden or something, that you're doing something very productive with the water. You're not just throwing it on bluegrass. And there's a way to credit that. I don't know if that's remotely possible. But it's something that I'm interested in, because I want to make sure that we're thinking about this more than sort of one-dimensionally, where we want to try and save water and the rates have to increase because we need improvements to our water treatment plants. This other piece I think is important. And so I think maybe there's an opportunity to sort of partner when we talk about xeriscaping, we talk about water-wise landscaping. I think we also should talk with the forestry department about our existing tree canopy.
Thank you for that. I think there'll be continued opportunities to discuss this with council, not only through how we manage this year's drought and decisions around that, but our teams are already working across groups in the city with our partners in VCN and our forestry team, not only as we implement our own city drought management plan, but as we partner with our community gardens or our other specific customers that are focused on urban agriculture, so that we can work with our partners in parks, as not only through the comprehensive plan, through the Parks Master Plan update, but really define what that vision is for agriculture and our tree canopy in the city, and make sure that water policy is aligned to continue to be supportive of what that vision is in the future. So I think we'll have a few opportunities to come back to the council and be able to address those concerns.
Yeah, I mean, maybe even as a first step, I don't know if there's any other neighboring communities that have figured out a solution to that particular problem, so rural versus urban water usage. I'm sure that someone has tackled it, but I don't have an example that I can speak to.
We'll work with our teams and try and bring back some examples for you to consider.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
You made me think of a few things. So one, it's funny he said that because I just installed a sensor on my spigot on the house that puts a drip line on my vegetable garden only, or sprayers on my vegetables only. And it has a way I know exactly my water usage just for the vegetable garden. So it'd be interesting to talk about a credit if we had a sensor like you can, and I could say, can I have a credit for it? But this leads into a bigger question, and I don't need you to bring this one back, because the question that when we started doing this was, and especially around droughts, 10 years ago, was the tiers get tighter? Do we change those tiers? Are we talking about changing tiers?
So we're going to be coming and talking about potential drought pricing with the council in the coming months, and where drought surcharges could be considered in the higher tiers, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, and what happens here is, so that's on the horizon, so we got to consider that in that conversation, and maybe vegetable gardens, if you can segregate it like that, maybe there is a credit, because I know you do a lot of growing, and I think there's something to be said about it, and maybe it's too much lift for the city, but it's something we should have a conversation around. But the second thing I want to bring up around the water rates, or not necessarily water rates, but drought, when we get into the drought situations, is the size of family. I've always had this concern, and I know I'm not going to bring it up, we don't need to debate it, because it's hard for the city to determine how many people are in the house. But the issue is like a house of 2 can meet the first tier or less easily. But once you have, like, I had 3 boys at a time, I was never in the first tier. I was pushed into the second tier, and then I got penalized and paid more money because I had more kids. Not that I was using it on anything else, but they have bathtubs, they drink water, they do things. And so if you have 5 or 6 kids, you're now in the 3rd or 4th tier, and now you're penalized because now you're using too much water because you have too many kids. It just doesn't feel fair, and I don't know how the city could even figure that out. But I don't know if we could or should, but that's another issue you got to think about when you talk about
Do
that.
you mind if I speak to that for
Yeah,
a second? Is that okay?
yeah, I'm fine.
I think this is a really good point. I wish I would have thought of it, but I'm not as smart as Councilmember Pfeiffer.
No, you sparked this conversation on this side.
I'm always game for any conversation that we can have that would make Arvada a more family-friendly city. And this conversation, I think, aligns with that very well. Families look all kinds of different ways. And the number of people that are in a house has a profound effect on how much water is used. Unless we're using the shower with a buddy, same, right, from our previous.
That was the previous mayor.
Realistically, we're not doing that, right? So people are showering, they're using water, so the per person usage is significant. And once again, I don't have a solution for you, Ms. Rhodes, but I would love to know if other municipalities have addressed that in some meaningful way.
I would love to bring back more information. I know our teams have been talking extensively about the tiers and how we can mirror and understand and benchmark, I guess, understand what's happening around us, especially in regards to where pricing is set at which tier. So our teams is thinking about this. We're talking about this with our leadership team and city manager to make sure that I think we have some ideas that we can bring forward for ongoing drought discussions.
Yeah, I mean, if there's something there, obviously, like I have a water efficient house. Everything is, the toilets, everything is, so there's not much more I can do. Now that I had 2 boys move back in for the summer, it's causing me an issue already. Because I've cut 20-30% off my water usage, but then now I'm seeing it spike back up now that they've moved back in for the summer. So I don't know what the answer is. And I know we did an average. I think that's how we got up to the tiers, is what the average and did a median and stuff. But maybe when you get into the drought conversation, maybe we can revisit your formulas and discussion and maybe some innovative ideas that we can lean into.
We can absolutely bring that forward, and I can't miss my opportunity to make a plug. You mentioned your smart apps for your smart controllers. We also have our Eye on Water program. We are in the process of upgrading all the water meters across the city, and many customers may already be available, may already have this available if you sign up for the Eye on Water app to help you take control of your usage. So I have to make that plug as well. And while this isn't specific to a single family home who might have a garden and some unique irrigation practices for us to consider, we are working with customers on a variance process who have unique irrigation needs. So anyone who's irrigating more than an acre, who needs to be working with the city on a water budget, may be implementing some strategies that we can consider while still achieving our goals, but working together so that they can have a water budget instead of strict administrative rules to follow for their irrigation practices.
Thank you.
And to add to your plug real quick, that's how I know I've reduced my water is through your Eye on Water. Because I've been using it to see what I did year over year to ensure that am I on track to, I think our goal is what, 20%, everyone does 20% less.
Mm-hmm.
So I was pushing that and that's what I use to see if I'm doing it. So I definitely will put a plug with you. It works.
All right, Councilmember Pfeiffer, I think you just need to tell the twins to shower less. All right, Councilmember Ambrose.
Thank you. A couple of things that the conversation made me think of is that the Extension Office is saying that if you have to pick what to water your trees. And I don't know how you can really incentivize that, but that really makes sense because that's the vegetation, like you're saying, Councilmember Griffith, that is hard to replace and to rebuild. The other thing is that 60% of water use in the summertime is for residential lawns. So really, that should be the priority, and I think is the priority of smart drought policy, is non-functional turf, don't water that. You know, if you need the water for your kids to play, the lawn for your kids to play in, or it's a soccer field, or it's, pets or something like that, okay, but non-functional turf, like, we really have to accept we live in a desert. We have to let that go. And this drought should be the conversation point to hold on to that and have smart policy. And it can really be done. I've been saying repeatedly about how Las Vegas as a city increased their population from 2002 to 2020 by 110%, and overall the city water usage decreased by 30-40%. And they have way less water than we do. So if we can figure out, if they can figure it out, I think we should really be pushing it too, and especially on the non-functional turf. I'm not saying you have to rock everything, but at least get Colorado species that is used to this 6 inches of rainfall that is typical in the grasslands that we have here on the Front Range. Like, stop prioritizing non-functional turf. That's where most of it is. And then that way, it doesn't matter how many kids you have or whatever, you know, what kind of farm you've got going on, because that's where the most of the water is being used, is on non-functional turf. So let's start there.
Excellent, thank you. Great conversation up here. I love workshops where we actually talk to each other. Love the capital, or I love the idea of the committee with the infrastructure committee, particularly with the timeline. It reminds me very much of the capital improvement committee we did some time ago to help us sort of triangulate what the major projects were. It feels very sort of a natural sort of successor to what we did some time ago. So I think that that's really good. And then the only other thing, I'm going to channel a thought Councilmember Pfeiffer somehow did not bring up. I thought for sure. Let's go back to our colors, red, orange, and yellow. There's no green, you guys. We always want to celebrate the greens, the things that we have delivered on. Maybe it can be on a separate page, but just to show the public, you know, it's not all red and orange and yellow, that, you know, we have had these bonds working for the last several years. Here are the things we've delivered, and and it makes us feel good when we start to see the stack up of all the things that we've delivered for our residents, and they can see where their money's been going and how it's been improving the city. So, and you're always the one who brings it up, so I want credit where credit's due. We want to see the greens. All right, that's all I have, and I see no additional lights. Thank you so much, Ms. Gray, Ms. Rhodes. Excellent as always. All right, that concludes both of our workshops this evening. Mr. Wick, do you have any updates for us?
I just have a couple of things. Great workshops tonight. Really appreciate the team for doing it. Another piece that I want to celebrate the teams for is they set up the limb drop-off starting this past Saturday. Through today, we've had 2,595 vehicles go through the limb drop-off, so a significant number. I think, as you all know, we've had a lot of limbs that have come down, and I would just encourage everyone to use the limb drop-off and not put them in our trails and in our parks and in our open space and our right-of-way. To please use the limb drop-off for that. You heard a couple of times that we did begin our budget preparation work. So that basically got kicked off today. We've been working on it for the past couple of months. And we will be working on the budget prep to bring to all of you later this year in terms of the recommended budget. And then finally, next week, you will, in addition to the business meeting, there will be a short presentation on the state legislative session that will be concluding. And so we'll look forward to having that presentation for you next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Real quick, the limb drop-off, I know, is at Long Lake Regional Park, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. When does it end? At the 18th?
It ends Sunday.
Okay, through Sunday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., Long Lake Regional Park. Ms. Morris, anything from you?
No, Your Honor.
All right, we are adjourned.